The NBA play-in tournament. It's been a part of the NBA for the last 2 years, and it's had some real success. I mean, some of the games have been very great. And from a business standpoint, from the NBA, it makes all the sense in the world. And that's why it is being reported that the play-in tournament is likely going to be permanent going forward. It's just more basketball, more games. The NBA gets more revenue. It generates more excitement. It gives other teams more opportunity. But I really want to break down sort of the pros and cons, or at least some of them, ones that come to mind, give my thoughts and opinions. And of course, I want to hear yours down in the comment section below. But jumping into it, right? So the play-in tournament, again, I understand the positives of it. From, again, financial state, all the sense in the world, right? The NBA is a business. You need to generate as much money as possible. It also gives teams a rare opportunity to potentially get into the playoffs when they wouldn't otherwise. But I do have a problem with that. And one of the big things that I want to highlight is, like, when it comes to the play-in tournament, like the Eastern Conference this past season was a great example of this working out great, right? You had the 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th seed all essentially just a game apart. So this was perfect, right? You know, they're all basically evenly matched, although all the games are kind of just blowouts, right? But for the most part, they were all, relatively within the same win-loss category, which is great. That's fine. So in a situation like this, why not? Why not let everyone duke it out for a chance to make the playoffs? Like maybe one team, injuries, stuff like that, which I do understand. Like there's opportunity for teams to make the play-in. Like, so 2 years ago when the Lakers were in the play-in, right? They were in the play-in due to injury, right? LeBron missed like 35 games. Anthony Davis missed like 30 games, like stuff like that. So I understand there are circumstances and the play-in is very beneficial, right? But the issue is that a lot of these teams work their butts off. And the NBA is the NBA. Things are things, right? There's going to be injuries. There's going to be, just bad games. There's going to be all of these little nuances that affect an 82-game season. And going through the trial and error, it makes it very difficult to justify a 10th seed having an opportunity to surpass and become, the A seed when the A seed has really earned it. Again, a situation like this to where they're all just like a game apart, okay, I get that. That is, I think, fair, right? They're all basically the same record. Why not let them duke it out? It's entertaining. It's more basketball. It's more this, more that. All of the fans, they get excited because it's like, all right, now we're in the play-in, all of that stuff. But if we move over to the Western Conference, this is where I think the issue lies. I mean, look at this. You had the 7th seed Minnesota Timberwolves. And luckily, the chips kind of fell where they should have, other than the Clippers, right? So the Timberwolves still finished with the 7th seed with a 46-36 record, right? And then the Pelicans surpassed the Clippers with a 36-46 record. They were 10 games behind the Minnesota Timberwolves as a 7th seed. And then the Clippers, who, yes, they had all kinds of injuries. They had all kinds of issues this season, right? But they worked their tail off to be in the position to make the playoffs. And if it wasn't for the play-in tournament, they would have, right? They would have been in the playoffs, and that team would have been very solid. Now, would they have gotten ran through? Possibly, but still, they earned that right, and it wasn't even close. Again, you're talking there was 6 games separating the Pelicans and the Clippers, right? That is ridiculous. There was 8 games separating the Spurs and the Clippers. And the opportunity, the fact that the opportunity for the Clippers to miss the playoffs was a thing, I think is an issue. And that's been the thing even before. Like I mentioned, the year prior, right? You had the 7th and 8th seed. They were like 5 games ahead of the 9th and 10th seed, and they still had to compete. Right? They still had to try to get into the playoffs. And look what happened to the Warriors. The Lakers still stayed in their spot at the 7th seed, but they should have never even have been in the play-in tournament. The Warriors should have likely never been in the play-in tournament. It's one of those situations to where it's like it presents impossible fairness, right? Because you earned that 7th seed. Now there's nothing but the 6th. If you don't get the 6th seed, then your hard work to get the 7th and 8th seed to be a playoff team is irrelevant now. And don't get me wrong, I get it. One of the positives is if your team needs to be in the play-in tournament to make the playoffs, and they do, the play-in tournament's the greatest thing in the world for you. It really is. But like also on the other side of that, you have situations like the Spurs. The Spurs did not want to make the playoffs last year. They did not want to get anywhere close to the playoffs last year. And because the Lakers imploded and couldn't win 2 more games, the Spurs ended up accidentally falling into the playoffs. And then they went into the play-in, they did the thing, and then, yes, they lost. But still, like, they weren't even trying to be in that department. They were, okay, we're like 10 games behind, we're good. And the Lakers just fell off a cliff. And so the Spurs were like, oh no. And look what happened. The Spurs were like, we're too good. We actually could make the play-in tournament every year. And my players, they're going to actually try to compete. So we need to just unload that entire team. And they imploded the team because it was like, we don't want to be in the play-in. We're trying to tank. And the play-in, I understand it's to incentivize teams and players and add more revenue to them and stuff like that. From a business side, I get it. From a player's side, I get it. But also from a player's side, I don't get it. Like, you are a team like the Clippers that came together when your 2-star players missed pretty much the entire season. You guys, the coach, all worked your tails off to get to this opportunity to make the playoffs, and now you missed the playoffs entirely because you had to do a play-in tournament and you had to win 2 games. Like, it's one of those things. It's a double-sided coin, right? I understand it from both ways. And look, I'm a Lakers fan, but the Lakers had no business making that play-in tournament. And I know they didn't make the play-in tournament, but they really could have. And if they would have won just like 2 more games, they would have been in the play-in tournament, and it's very likely they would have made the playoffs. In all honesty, as much as I love the Lakers, and I would have been rooting for them to win the play-in, and I would have been rooting for them to make it to the playoffs and maybe winning, although I don't think it would happen. But if I remove my fan bias of like, it's the Lakers and I need them to be in the playoffs every year, if I remove that, the Lakers had absolutely no business being anywhere close to the playoffs. And they didn't, but they could have. And the fact that that is an opportunity, that should not be a thing. Like, that's a problem because, again, you have these teams that are just grinding and working and doing everything that they need to do through injuries, through everything that all the other teams in the NBA are dealing with, and still make it to the 7th or 8th seed. And then to realize we have to play, 1, possibly 2 games to make the playoffs still. It's a losing effort. Unless you're good enough to make the 6th seed. But again, you see teams like the Clippers, they wouldn't have been in the play-in last year if Paul George and Kawhi Leonard were injured. But in reality, they shouldn't even have been in an opportunity to be in the play-in. But they worked so hard to get there, and they earned that spot. And we see it. You have all these teams earning these spots, and it's just rough. It's like, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it personally. Like, from the basketball fan standpoint, like, I'm like, yeah, this is great. More basketball, more NBA, more intense games, playoff type environments. Like, let's do that. Like, I'm all for it, And then, of course, if your team, like I said, the Lakers, if they have an opportunity to be in the play-in and make the playoffs, it's like, cool. If they are the 9th or 10th seed. But if you're the 7th or 8th seed, it kind of sucks, It's like if you're the 7th seed and you end up losing and not making the playoffs at all because whatever, you just have a bad stretch of 2 games or somebody gets hurt or something like that. And it's like, well, we would have had a week off to get into the playoffs if we didn't have to do this play-in thing. And my guy would have been back, and now we lost and now we're not, there's just a lot of circumstances that I think could just be very negative for the Lights. And I think about the pros and cons and I'm like, I don't know how I really feel about it. But as always, this is a discussion, so I want to hear from you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comment section below. What do you think of the NBA play-in tournament? Do you love it? Do you hate it? Do you think it's more basketball. It makes sense from a business side. It gives teams an opportunity, gives teams an incentive. I love it. I love that this is permanent. This is great. Let's make this happen. Or are you on the other side where you're just like, hey, it isn't fair because you have these teams that work their butts off all year to get to the 7th and 8th seed, and now you're making it more challenging for them. So unless you get the 6th seed, you basically worked your butt. What's the point? That's kind of my thing too, is that what's the point in trying to get the 7th or 8th seed? I mean, yeah, you have to play 1 less game, But depending on the circumstances, like I could see teams being like, hey, we're like 4 games away from being, the A seed, but like our guys are kind of worn down. Let's just sit them out and we'll just go. We're going to be in the play-in regardless. But if we have, let's say the Lakers or whatever, if we have a healthy LeBron, Anthony Davis in the playoffs, we're going to beat both of those teams. So it's not a big deal. Like, let's just rest them, and then we'll finish as the 10th seed, and we'll still get into the playoffs. Like, I could see that happening a lot, right? But I don't know. Again, I'd love to hear your opinions. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'm kind of mixed on it. Every time I think of something positive, I think of something negative, and vice versa. But, again, this is a discussion, so let me know. One last little shameless plug is I did start As It Stands Lakers. It is a channel just like this, dedicated to only the Lakers, because the Lakers are my favorite team. And on this channel, As It Stands, I talk about all teams, all sports, stuff like that. We have football season coming up, so I'm definitely looking forward to that as well. And I just wanted to make a dedicated channel to the Lakers to give the ins and outs. Now, all the big stuff, all the big news and stuff, I will still post here on this channel. But if you want all the ins and outs and just rumors and theories and just discussions just strictly on the Lakers, link down in the description or in the comment section. Go check out the channel, subscribe to the channel. I'd really appreciate it. That being said, hit that like button. Helps me out a lot. Lets me know you enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. If you're not subscribed to the channel, hit that subscribe button, followed by the bell notification. Stay up to date with all things sports. Join this wonderful community and all of our discussions. I'll see you all in the next one. Thank you.